Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Flourish FM, a podcast for the good life. Our guest today is Karen Guggenheim. She is a pioneer in the global happiness movement, a leader in promoting the science behind well-being international audience, and a motivational speaker inspiring people about how to grow post-trauma and rebuild a life focused on meaning, purpose, and happiness. She's the author of Cultivating Happiness, Overcome Trauma and Positively Transform Your Life, and has given a TED Talk entitled The Bridge to Happiness. She's also the producer of the World Happiness Summit, which is a leading well-being conference promoting the benefits of an evidence-based approach to increasing happiness in all areas of life. And she offers listeners a discount to this year's World Happiness Summit in this episode. Nick, what did you love most about our conversation with Karen?
I think despite Karen being really in some ways a pioneer in sort of the happiness event space, right, through WOHASU, and a big fan and proponent of applying positive psychology principles, among other things, we spent most of the conversation talking about unpleasant experiences. Right? There was a lot of nuance, right? Obviously, the topic is overcoming trauma, but it's not kind of a either or, right? Karen painted very much a picture of both and, that you can have some of these unpleasant experiences while also choosing to pursue, or in the case of her book, right, cultivate happiness. And so I think that nuance and that both and perspective is one we've heard similarly from previous guests like Shiga Oishi, for example, but we've heard in some other episodes as well. And I was glad that Karen sort of threaded that needle, so to speak.
Absolutely. Thank you. We hope you loved this conversation as much as we did. This is How to Overcome Trauma and Cultivate Happiness with Karen Guggenheim. Karen, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you, John?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for asking. Thank you for joining us today. It's a real honor to have you on our show. We've really enjoyed reading your book, Cultivating Happiness. Really looking forward to speaking to you about it today. And so let's start off with that. So you are an expert in how to cultivate happiness, particularly after experiencing trauma. And your book shows us how to grow from challenges to lead more fulfilling and purposeful lives. It's grounded in psychology, neuroscience, but also your own lived experience from having recovered from trauma. So to kick things off, what made you feel that this was a book that you had to write?
Well, it comes from the commitment that I made back 13 years ago after my husband suddenly passed away from the flu. And he caught a cold, and in 10 days he was gone. And so, I mean, first a shock, not even pain, just shock and trauma. I have to say it was a very traumatic experience because I was in the room with the doctors trying to save him. And it was traumatic to tell my son, who was in college, that his father had passed away. So there's like trauma on so many different levels. And when that happened, I didn't know about positive psychology. I didn't know about the science of flourishing and well-being and awe and gratitude and purpose and any of that. My undergraduate degree is in traditional psychology, and actually I didn't go into it because I found it too depressing. I found it interesting, but depressing. And my first master's is in communications. I'm a former journalist, and I think I'm a storyteller at heart, and that's why the book comes about, and also my work. And so at first I didn't really want to live. I wanted to, like I said, I knew the pain was coming and I didn't want to feel the pain. So I just wanted to shut away from life. And I remembered I have children. So I thought, okay, I went into my reasoning brain, right? Which is like, okay, I have children. I am the mother. I am the responsible adult. And then I thought it's bad enough that my husband died, right? It would be really tragic if then the family kind of imploded, right? And then the children went into despair, and and our lives just multiplied into negativity and pain perpetually. I mean, the pain would be felt, but just this like legacy of pain, and I didn't want that. And so I decided to live, and I thought, okay, very naively, pain is coming, so happiness is coming right after. It's like, when they give little kids, if you have your medicine, you can have a candy or a popsicle.
Yeah.
So I guess that was what I was, holding on to in that moment. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be happy. I choose happiness. And I understood even back then that it wasn't pleasure. Okay. It wasn't just pleasure, but it was like, there's going to be something that it's going to be really meaningful for me, that it's going to be like, I'm alive and I'm happy that I am alive, right? That I'm going to choose this. It's going to be really hard, but then it's going to be like, it was worth it. So that's what I felt. And I knew that the first step towards that place I wanted to go was to feel all my feelings. And the feelings were not going to be fun feelings to feel. And so I felt that purpose and meaning was what I could control out of an uncontrollable situation. And that was like my shield. Like, I'm going to put this shield on. I'm going to walk through the fire because I'm purpose and meaning, purpose and meaning. So I'm walking through the fire, but I'm going to where I need to go. And that's where I'm going. And so 4 months after my husband died, I was getting an MBA at Georgetown University because I had to do a few things like retrain my career. I also realized that I needed to be with people. My instinct was to isolate, but I realized that because of where I wanted to go, I had to be with people. And so slowly but surely, what I call accidentally became happy again. But there were things in place, like I had this sense of purpose and meaning. I had strong relationships. I was learning something new. I was beginning to say yes to going out to a lunch or dinner or something like that. So I was beginning to become an active, participant of my life. And so that's what I did. In a year and a half after the program, I got a really great job on paper and a great trajectory, but there was absolutely no purpose in it or meaning, except I could do it well and I could make money. And if I stayed, I would be successful. But I felt empty inside. And I thought, I didn't survive my husband's death to dread going to work.
Mhm.
So I can't live this. And so then when I discovered that there was a science behind kind of my recovery or my flourishing or my blossoming or whatever you want to call it, and that there was all this evidence of work, and what I found out also, that it's, regardless if you call it happiness, thriving, well-being, flourishing, whatever it is, it's this, for me, is this collection of more positive emotions, knowing that life will happen in small, medium, or big ways, right? And so how do you, oh yeah, that was really disappointing and painful, and okay, and so my life really is about the and the yet. It doesn't feel good yet, or I'm not there yet, or I don't know how to do that yet. I'm really disappointed. And
Okay, so the first place I want to start here, and you've teased it out already, the affective dynamic, right? The emotional dynamic of this, because with the way you described it, understandably traumatic, intense, unpleasant affect, right? Emotion. And over the course of time, that ratio started to, as you said, accidentally in some ways, although I want to tease that out too, started to shift to maybe, a little bit more pleasant, it sounds like, right? And John wrote a good question, I think, like the type of happiness that you're experiencing. But I'm going to ask it in sort of another way. Do you think it's rebounded, or do you think it'll sort of always be different?
no, I think it's totally into the anti-fragility level, like not rebound, not even close to rebound, just to new level.
Growth.
But significant growth. And that's why the book is
Mm.
about post-traumatic growth. But what is very interesting is that, for me, the part that I love the most, because it is the cognitive part of happiness, because it's the part that you can really control as possible. Like, I can control being grateful. I can control being kind or forgiving or all these other things that are really hard. But where the accidental part, like you mentioned, I was doing them, but now I do them on purpose. Now it's my daily routine, like brushing my teeth, right? And so I love that. And when I do that, I get to experience more positive affect. Because, at the end of the day, do I feel good ruminating about something? Do I really care? Can I just like engage metacognition and see that do I care? Right?
Yeah.
And before, it was just like, because you said this to me, and so I need to say this back to you, and then this whole thing, or like the rehearsing the conversation that probably you and I will never have or don't need to have if it's around something that doesn't matter to you, doesn't matter to me. And it's been such a gift, I'll tell you, because one of the things that has really impacted me is the ability to speak with people who either have hurt me or who are really challenging. And I don't do it right all the time, right? But when I can act with boundaries and compassion, it's just almost euphoria out of the success of doing that. It feels like climbing Mount Everest, but it does require a lot of training, and to begin to open yourself to the possibility of a positive feeling out of a negative exchange,
That's the bit right there, right? Because you mentioned the word acceptance early on,
Yeah.
which is easier said than done because it's incredibly unpleasant, requires a great deal of distress tolerance, right? And so like I want to honor how impressive and amazing that is, because that's really, really difficult, especially in such traumatic circumstances. And to use your word, it sounds like, I mean, what I heard is you both consciously and maybe somewhat subconsciously leaned into the two greatest predictors of a happy life, which is meaning and other people, basically,
Mhm.
right? Will you
Right.
talk a little bit more about the role that those played in helping you start to shift that pleasant and unpleasant ratio a little bit?
Well, the first people were my two sons, right?
Sure.
And so that was really important. That was really, really, really important. And as a mother, that was really hard because you can't fix it. You got to just watch it and hold the space for it. And you're used to, okay, let me fix it. I'll buy you another one, right? Don't worry about it. It's broken, but I'll get one, and you find it, right? And this thing was just, you got to watch it. You have to watch it. You have to be there. But I'll tell you something. I never, ever, ever treated them like victims. I focused on, yes, super painful, super unfair. And then, how fortunate to have a father like that, because my husband was magnificent. He was just an incredibly kind, wonderful, smart, funny man. And what a privilege. That's your dad. That's your father. And so I did that, and they never saw me also, kind of act as a victim, like, why me? I had one moment of why me, and my mother said, kindly, but she said, why not you? Why am I like inoculated from bad things happening in life? And I don't even call them, it's not necessarily bad. It's just life happens, like stuff happens, like you walk down the street and you get run over by a truck. Like that happened. And one thing that I think a lot of us who've had, especially sudden death in our families, when people say like, oh, things happen for a reason and everything, some things just happen. Like just, my husband got a cold, they made mistakes in the hospital, and then he died. And then when people are like, oh, baby, but you created the world happiness. And I'm like, well, I don't think, for me, that's not like, it happens for a reason. It's just, it happens. And then I made choices that got me to here. And then also the people part and the meaning part, has evolved into, I really, really like if I can make an opportunity to try to help people connect with these principles. And that really makes me happy. I can't make you be happy, but if I can create an event or a training or something where you can connect with the science and see how that works in your life, and you have that aha moment, and in baby steps, you begin to transform your life in a certain way and transform your brain, the way you react, just everything. That really nourishes me. So when I go to places and people, I was at the airport flying back last night, and I'm buying water, and somebody rushes over to me. It's like, "Oh, Karen." And they had been to the summit in Miami, and they're coming now to the next one in Portugal. And and they were so like so happy, so grateful, and all these stories of how it has impacted their lives, the learning that they have from people such as yourselves who talk about and research and work on the science. And then my job is to promote the science and the practice so people can have access to these tools. And that makes me really happy. And obviously personal relationships and friendships, incredibly important. And then the meaning, not only to promote the science and such, but I feel responsible for my husband's legacy because his life was cut short. And so, like I mentioned to you before, he was incredibly kind. He was a scientist, he was a doctor. And so I carry that legacy in the work that I do.
So,
So
so tell the
it has a lot
audience
of
a little
meaning
more
to me.
formally about that work, right? Because you're right, it's a perfect carryover, the relationship piece, the social connection, the meaning, the purpose, the impact, all the psychology and the science behind it. What is WOHASU? When did it start? And
Right.
what does it do?
So WOHASU, well, is the organization we founded in 2016. So it's the first two letters of World Happiness Summit. And the World Happiness Summit, so for WOHASU is our 10-year anniversary. It's a decade of doing this. And in
Congrats.
happiness, 9 years, it's a long time. And we're very proud that so many other events, summits, forums, nonprofits, services, masters, etc., communities have launched or had a genesis in the World Happiness Summit. So it has really rippled out into a global movement for promoting the science and the practice. So it's two things that are incredibly important in our mission. And what we do is that we gather the world's leading experts and practitioners in the science, and we take a holistic approach. So we begin with the individual and then start to go out, because I believe that this thing only works inside out. So you begin inside and then look at, the relationship realm, the work realm, education, community, and those kinds of things. And then we do it in a beautiful setting because I think it should be celebrated. I think the science should be celebrated in the way that you celebrate the Academy Awards, and it's beautiful and it's majestic and there's a lot of pomp and circumstance. I think this work is so important for the future, the present and the future of humanity, especially with AI coming so quickly. And I think that these are the things that are so important. It makes us human. It's the best of us as humans. And so it should be celebrated. We should talk about this. We should celebrate it. We should wear the shirt for it. We wear shirts for teams. Why don't we wear the shirt for this? And so that's what we do. And it's really fascinating how it's grown. We just launched something called WOHASU on Tour. So it's a kind of an unplugged of the summit. So a 1-day event that we bring to different parts of the world. We do training. We're working with the Miami-Dade County Public School System. It's the third largest in the United States, with 400,000 students and 40,000 employees. It's the largest employer in Miami. And we're certifying all Miami-Dade County Public School principals in wellbeing leadership. We've done 156, and we've done the cabinet and the superintendent.
Tremendous.
Amazing.
And it is a WOHASU Happier School District. So, we're trying to work and create conditions where, leaders lead in a different way, and they have to feel well to lead well, right? And have a different idea also of the metrics so that they can have a more expansive definition of success. And we're very excited that the superintendent in Miami is doing that or said okay to that.
Hi friends, Nick here with just a brief interlude to share with you an update on one of our newest partnerships with the Anti-Fragile Academy. Throughout John and I's conversations with many, if not most, of our guests, one thing has been made really clear. In order for people to flourish, thrive, experience the good life, they need to develop the capacity to not only navigate and endure, but ideally grow from the bad, grow from unpleasant experiences. That's why we're thrilled to be partnering with our newest sponsor, the Anti-Fragile Academy, an organization that I co-founded with Dr. Adam Wright, Director of Mental Performance for the Washington Nationals. At the Anti-Fragile Academy, we work with adolescent athletes, executives, and educators to help them understand some of the science, not just of optimal performance, but of well-being and anti-fragility. The ability not only to endure and bounce back from unpleasantness, but to actually come back stronger, to grow from it. Between Adam and I, we've worked with Fortune 100 companies, Inc. 300 executives, Division I programs, and elite professional athletes and Olympians from all over the world. To find out more about how you can leverage anti-fragility training, check out our website at theantifragileacademy.com.
Awesome. Well, perhaps this is a good moment to mention that listeners or viewers of this episode can receive a discount to WOHASU this year. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. So we can, if they go to worldhappinesssummit.com and then click tickets, we'll have a 20% off discount, and we'll call it Flourish.
All right. I'm adding this now.
We'll have it in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
I'm adding
And
it.
we'd love to see you in Portugal. It's going to be amazing. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Really
Great choice
excited.
of country to do this in. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
It feels peaceful there. You know, I think we
Yeah.
need a little bit of peace.
Yeah.
Seeing that the world is feels so overwhelming at the moment for some of us.
Absolutely. So you've described how your view of happiness changed following trauma, and we've talked on many episodes of this podcast with guests about what's sometimes called post-traumatic growth. And there are some studies that show that this is a more commonly self-reported phenomenon after people experience trauma than the opposite of that, post-traumatic stress disorder. And we've gone through the theories of this and so on, but we haven't really, dived in deep into the experience of someone who has experienced it and what they've learned about happiness, who themselves is also a happiness expert on this. So what's been your experience of what exactly post-traumatic growth is, if you have experienced that? Like, in what ways do you feel you've grown, and how that's changed maybe the way you live and certain things? Because we've got the theories where we can go into theory if you like, but it'd be cool to also understand how it's impacted you personally.
In so many ways, the relationship part, that was always a strength for me. So, but now even more so, I gravitate a lot to especially people who've been hurt. So the people that come to the summit who are struggling and such, and then they find happiness, or they find purpose, or they find whatever it is that they need at that moment. That's incredibly important for me and very gratifying. But also it opens up a completely new world of possibilities. Not only, and most importantly, I would say internally, okay? I never saw myself doing that. I never thought I could do that. I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. Before my husband died, I was in crisis management and public relations. I would tell other people what to say. And I didn't like public speaking. And now I do that all the time. And I really enjoy it because I'm speaking about something that has a lot of meaning to me. That I've educated. Obviously, I have my 10,000 hours, but also has a lot of meaning. And I've seen the impact on other people when they receive this information, right? And having been broken, right, it also helps lend it a lot of credence, because many times we have myths around happiness, that it's only, when people have had a great life or had a perfect childhood. And guess what? My childhood wasn't perfect either. And I was born in a third world country. I'm from Nicaragua. So there's been other things beyond my husband.
Mm-hmm.
They also, I think, kind of helped me flex that courage muscle and that potential for anti-fragility, I think.
Hardiness. Robustness.
Robustness. Yeah. I mean, so those are the and then the a global movement. What? Like I go here, I go there. Now, we were in Italy, we were in London, we had the Surgeon General. Now we're going to Portugal. We're working with, the Miami County the public school system is happier school district. WOHASU happier school. Like, those things are a 100% result of the growth that I went through to be able to do that in just 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Karen, how does it could be you, it could be WOHASU, the curriculum, whatever it might be. How do you integrate? Because for context for our audience, so we would get a lot of different people from different fields. If we talk specifically a little bit, because you've referenced it, and I come from this background too, positive psychology. Lots of the individuals in the field do a great job integrating the nuance of unpleasant emotion. The larger community, in my opinion, does not. Right? It's a little too focused on the positive, the pleasant, right? You have this range of experiences, right? Life experiences, practical experience, but also you've seen some of the science on both sides. How are you weaving those together in a way that you feel like sends I hesitate to say right kind of message, but the message that resonates for you and that you think really does line up with the science? Because it's nuanced.
Well, for me, it's really a mindset. So I choose to look at life as an opportunity, right? And so that opportunity has a lot of things happening in it, Sometimes it's rainy, sometimes it's stormy, sometimes it's the most beautiful blue sky. Like life has human beings will have the gamut of the full human experiences, and that's a good thing, right? The problem is when we run away from those experiences or stay and like pick that wound and just talk about it on and on and on and on. And I think that sometimes you got to get out from the table. You have to feel the feeling, and it's real. I'm not saying it's not real, but at some point you have to start with that. Okay. And what am I going to do about it? Or how can I start to feel like life has more meaning or is worthwhile? And so, okay, gratitude is a very nice reset so that you can see. So it takes you out of tunnel thinking, tunnel vision. Any tunnel vision, whether it's only the good or only the bad, is tunnel vision. So the idea is to look at the whole thing and then, okay, these are the things that I can do something about, right? Because right now it could be like on CNN instead of having this podcast with you and just seeing everything that's going on. Right? I can be aware of it, and it makes me, I am anxious about it and I don't like it. But then if I choose to spend my entire day and have every phone call I have and every text I have around those things that I can't control, it's going to impact me in a very negative way, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So at the other side, just to say, nothing's going on and I'm just going to put my head underground and like walk down the street, whether it's a green light or a red light, I'm going to walk through the street because, it's a beautiful day and only good things will happen. That's also not realistic. And so I think that it's important to start looking at life like an opportunity, and like even the parts that are disappointing. I mean, it's your life. It's your life. You need to feel it. You need to be present to it. If you're not present, you don't feel the good or the bad. And so it's like it just passed you by.
Yeah.
And so like I'm able to have incredible memories of my husband. Incredible memories. It took 6 to 8 years for me to get there. Okay, but I can savor them. I can feel, I can remember, I can laugh now. I couldn't in the beginning. It took me, like I said, good 6 to 8 years, but now I have those and they're rich and they make me happy. They make me nostalgic and they also give me a bit of melancholia, but which is okay. It can be funny and melancholic. It can suck and be wonderful, but I had them. They're mine. They're my things that I lived. And so that's the way that I see it. And it's really, I think, a shortcoming to just think you're going to feel one way or another.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
because it doesn't work that way. Humans don't work that way.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Karen. So you've done some, really deep work on yourself and with others to cultivate happiness following trauma. And we're certainly not going to give listeners the impression that this is an easy or quick thing to do, and nor do you, right? But it sounds like you do use some reframing techniques in your day-to-day life. You mentioned gratitude here. You mentioned that when you have a difficult experience in a relationship with someone or an interaction with someone, you're able to see the positives through this, or a way to get through it. In terms of some, a simple method or some simple methods listeners or viewers of this episode can do to start cultivating happiness, such as reframing techniques, gratitude practices, ways to interact with people differently, are there any particular practices that you most recommend people do?
Yes. So first of all, what works for you? So again, we give options, and that's why I call the book Cultivating Happiness, because I see it like a field. Sometimes the field is like the harvest is in and you have to go, get the fruit. The other ones are being prepared. The other ones, you're putting seeds in there. So there's different things that you can be doing. So for example, if forgiveness is very hard for you, you can maybe start just like, plowing the land. But if gratitude is something that is easier, or altruism or something like that, then you could work with what you're already good at and easy for you. Okay. That's another thing. You can tap into, your strengths, what is naturally you're good at doing. So if you're naturally good at helping and you like it, do more of that. So then you can say, okay, whoa, when I'm feeling down, but I know I like to help people. So let me go help somebody, because that's going to help me, it give me more energy. I think that's another thing that we talk about managing our time, but we don't talk about managing our energy. And I'm not talking about energy in a woo-woo way. I'm talking about like physically. Are you tired? Did you eat? Are you emotionally drained? Like, which people are you with that drain you? Like, there's the whole burnout situation at work. And so it's important to start to slow down your thinking. And I think that's one of the biggest tips I can give to people. If you can start to slow down your thinking, maybe meditating, maybe if you go for a walk, you color, you look outside, you have a cup of coffee, and you touch the tactile, is very important to bring you into the moment of what are you doing, right? Or to walk and feel the sun, because we are, I think, very reactive. And right now with the world, the way it is, and all the communication and all that stuff, so we're very reactive, and that can be damaging to relationships. And as we know, relationships are the most important thing for us, right? The relationship people. And so, but to be able to make the choices, first you have to realize that you have choices in your reaction, right? And then to start to see, oh, and maybe even imagine a little bit, use your imagination. If I say that, where is that going to lead me to my goal? Is this what I want? And many times, if it's like, okay, well, it will ruin the friendship, or I will hurt my loved one's feelings, but I'll be right. Do you want to go there? So if you can start to think about that. And we're good about thinking about that, like at work. If I want to launch a new program, or if I want to admit this PhD student, or if I want to grow this business, we think about how to get there, and we think about how we design that. And something that I'm doing now is in talking on is about, designing your life inside out, because we're used to designing strategies, buildings, careers, homes, but we don't really design our lives. We let the life kind of happen. And so we can I reset every day. Every day I reset. So I don't look at my phone. I don't look at my phone after 8 p.m. or in the morning. People can get something called an alarm clock, that because that's the first thing I need. I need my phone for the alarm. It's like, but there are other ways, believe me. And so I get a cup of coffee because I really like that. And then I read something inspiring, and then I journal. And it's not forever, it's like a little bit, but it opens me to gratitude. It opens me to expand my life where, things still happen that are overwhelming. And let me tell you, having a business promoting happiness and the science of happiness is difficult. It's challenging because there are a lot of naysayers. And so, and people are waiting for the right conditions. Should you be talking about happiness? And it's like, if we wait, we're just going to be talking about all negativity, which is also not good. So, exercise, really important, even just walking outside, music. I put the music when I'm in the shower, and I don't wait to want to listen to music. I put it on anyway. Like brushing your teeth, you don't have this whole philosophical conversation or think of the KPIs of brushing your teeth. You just do it because you want to have nice breath and nice teeth. And so I think that we can be principled about the things that we know help us feel better. And we have an understanding on that, I feel, with our physical body. Like, I go to the gym because I want to have nice abs, or I want to look this way and I need to eat this way. But for some reason, when it's about our brain or our mind or emotions, we don't do any kind of, usually I wasn't taught with this to do work around it. What are emotions like? And the illuminating fact that not everything that you think is true, fine. But I thought that everything I thought was true, and so these are just things that are just super enlightening. And happiness can be in a different way, can be packed in meaning. If I don't know if you all have kids, but for the listeners who have children, if you've been to a recital, is that a happy moment most of the time? No, it's not. But it's a lot of meaning. Or a graduation when there's like 500 kids and it's hot and you're outside. It's dreadful, but there's a lot of meaning,
Yeah. I'll never forget. Related to that, when I was in the quiet carriage in a train one time, and a kid got out his recorder and started playing it, a very young kid, and everyone was too polite to say anything, even though it
That
sounded
didn't make
awful.
you happy.
Right? And everyone was like, "Oh no!" But it's like, yeah, well, we're not going to complain about the kid who wants to practice his recorder in the quiet carriage, right?
And probably the kid's face, right? When you saw the
Yeah,
kid's
exactly.
face, so
Yeah,
proud and
if
like,
you
oh my
look to the-
God.
if you look to the kid doing it, you're like, okay, yeah, this is fine. Look, he's really enjoyed it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Something you keep referring to, I think, and John's question elicited it as well. I think it's important for listeners to hear, you're not describing, when we talk about reframing or choosing or mindset, it's very easy for people to feel like that means suppress the crappy stuff you're feeling. And just to reiterate, because you've said acceptance a couple times, but in your examples there, you really went back to acceptance commitment technique. You were talking about values alignment, right? I've done some framing. I can see the crappy part of this. I can see the potential positive side of this, even though affectively it feels awful right now. My brain can maybe see a way out, right? But that's not the same thing as just, I'm going to benefit find this away. I'm going to gratitude this away, right? There's an acceptance of the unpleasant affect. And then you said it, what do my values dictate in this moment? How do I want to behave, right? Oh, if I think I'm altruistic, if I want to be compassionate, if I want to take care of people, maybe that's how I need to stay values aligned, right? Will you talk a little bit more about the role that your personal values have played, but more expansively, the role you see values play in anyone you've connected with around PTG?
Yeah. So the first thing I'd like to say is, and I encourage all of us to spend time to really understand what these principles and these words mean, like you were explaining, because we don't have a vocabulary for well-being. Okay. So in the same way that you go to trigonometry and they explain to you what a triangle is. So I encourage people to understand what it means to have a mindset, like in the way that we're talking and framing. Okay, that's very important. And if we just go by what Instagram tells us those are, we're really missing out on how we can build our lives. So that's the first thing, right? And then, yeah, the values are critical. It's my lighthouse, right? It's my lighthouse. And I think that that's something really important too, is to take a moment and look at what are the, take 5 top values. For me, family is really important, and community, and
People
courage.
always ask when I'm generally when I'm working with people, what are values? How do you answer that question for folks you're working with?
So for me, is that the values are it's tied to beliefs as well. It's kind of like the deep-seated beliefs on how I prioritize living in the world,
Yeah,
you know?
good. Yeah.
And for me, when I stay close to those and I make decisions around that, I'm not perfect. And many times I disappoint others and disappoint myself. But when I stay close to that, even if I make a mistake, I'm like, well, it was aligned to what my value is, or even if it was a missed opportunity, if it was, at least for me, it makes me feel like my decisions are more aligned with who I am. What I find in myself, where I get very anxious, okay, is when I experience cognitive dissonance. When I do something and I don't know why I did it, and it's not it, and I sit down and I'm like, that's not either who I am, and who I am is really my values, you know. And so it just doesn't feel right. And I've experienced, and this is something else that I encourage the listeners, and that's why journaling is so important. Like, how do you feel when you do these things for you? Like, how do you feel when you understand, like, whoa, why did I do that? And what are and I don't feel comfortable with myself. And maybe nobody noticed, right? It doesn't have to be a big thing, but you just feel like off, or you feel anxiety.
Incoherent,
Yeah.
incongruent. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, the biggest one is when I am not aligned with my values. I also think that people very much need to give themselves grace. Like, you're not going to I don't do it right all the time, and there's no right. It's just, I mean, life is like telling somebody to play a concert piano show live on stage at Carnegie Hall, and you've never played the piano. So that's what we're doing. But you can train for these things. It's not that you can't train to feel pleasure all the time. That you can do, but you can train to look at, these are the principles that are, like, oh, this is really what gratitude is. This is what forgiveness is. And doesn't mean that, what the person did is okay. And really, you forgive for yourself. Absolutely. And I love the work of Dr. Fred Luskin out of Stanford. And if anybody's struggling with forgiveness, I really encourage them to look at that. For me, forgiveness is, I've had to forgive a lot, I'll tell you. I had to forgive the doctors that caused his death, okay? Because I could stay in, but why? I mean, these people are not bad people. They made mistakes that caused his death, right? So was I angry in the beginning? Yes. Was it really hard? Yes. All of these things, yes. But eventually, I forgave them, because otherwise that's living in me and is insult to injury. And when I did that, I was able to get so much energy to do other things, and to invest in my relationships, and to think about work, and to be creative, and to do these things. It's still really hard that they made that mistake, right? But
Of course.
I have moved on from feeling that I want to punish them. Although initially you have that feeling, but it's a feeling. Okay. It's just a feeling. It's just data. It's just like, that really was a big hurt, and it was a big mistake. but they didn't mean it. Otherwise, they'd be in jail, you know? So they didn't do it on purpose. And so that frees me up for other stuff. I also like something that, I don't know if the audience or you all are familiar with Mo Gadot. So Mo is a former chief business officer of Google X, and he wrote many books, but he launched Solve for Happy at the first World Happiness Summit. And he's an engineer, and he looks at happiness through an engineer's point of view. And I connected with Mo because tragically he lost his son Ali to an emergency appendectomy, and they perforated his femoral artery and he bled out. Really tragic. And he dedicated his life to try to reach 1 billion people, you know, about the science of happiness. And something he said was very profound for me. He said, you know, Ali lived and Ali died. Both are true. I choose to focus on the part that he lived. And I do the same with my husband. You know, understanding that it's painful today. It's painful now to talk to you about it. You know, I can't go really deep into it because then I'll get emotional, but I know that right now is not the right time to do that, you know, because I'm at a podcast, I'm sharing with you. But of course, the pain is there, but also, you know, all the wonderful things that I lived with him is also quite amazing. And so that's where the choice comes in.
Mhm.
You know, it's not
Mhm.
like, yeah,
Both
he's dead and I get to, you know.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Karen. So we have one final question that we love to ask all our guests. Call it the flourishing question. What is one lesson on flourishing that you'd love our listeners or viewers to walk away with, and a practical step for putting it into action?
Well, you know, I think to explore, to really, really explore. For me, in my book, you know, I'm a farmer, so I'm cultivating and plowing.
Mhm.
But I encourage the listeners to be explorers of the life, not only outside but inside of yourself. Why do I feel like this? Why do I think like this? Do I like it? And I like it, not, you know, is it good? Is it bad? How does it feel? Do I feel replenished? Does it make me feel hopeful? Do I feel courageous? Or am I full, you know, with anxiety? And why is that?
Mhm.
And what can I do? What small thing can I do today? So, for example, we all have to-do lists, but I encourage the listeners to create a to-be list. How do I want to be today? Do I want to be a little bit more kind, a little bit more forgiving, a little bit more maybe optimistic, understanding that not maybe most of the things in the world or in our lives are going well, but what's one more thing that, you know, that's kind of not too bad, or that I can let go of that criticism or that thing I didn't like, because guess what? You know, 5 people opened the door for me today.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what I would encourage them to be, explorers.
Fantastic. Love that. Become explorers. Thank you so much, Karen. Love this conversation. We love your book as well, Cultivating Happiness. Highly recommend it to listeners. Is there anything else you'd like to mention for our listeners today?
Well, we will be in beautiful, sunny Portugal, in Lisbon, on May 16th and 17th for the World Happiness Summit 2026. And the theme is kindness for a happier life. So we would love for your community to join us. And they can get more information on worldhappinesssummit.com.
And they get 20%
Excellent.
off with the code
And they
Flourish.
get 20% off with the Flourish code. Yes.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you.
Been
It's been wonderful, Karen. Thank you for the time. Appreciate
It
it.
was great. It was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you both. It was a great conversation. I really appreciate it. And my voice held. Yes.
Yes.
Woohoo!
Hopefully you'll be completely, fully 110% recovered super soon. Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you for all of you for listening and watching today. This has been How to Overcome Trauma and Cultivate Happiness with Karen Guggenheim.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to Flourish FM. We hope you enjoyed the content. Please be sure to leave us a 5-star review and hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to your podcast and on all major social media platforms.
And if you visit our website, flourishfmpodcast.com, you can sign up to our newsletter. We send out a weekly newsletter. First newsletter of every month, we share a long-form blog, and every newsletter, every week, we share highlights from our previous episodes. Please hit subscribe on our website.